Right, take us away.
I said, Morg, play the fucking jingle.
Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome along to the Football Booth podcast. My name is Fen, and I'm one of your main hosts. Join alongside me, the one, the only. I've got Mayhem. How you doing, buddy?
Fucking buzzing.
He's draped in the orange, white, and green tonight. As you can see, he was going to try and wear it as a balaclava, but Microsoft Teams was being very naughty to him and wanted to completely shy out his face overall. However, the bad news is, going into this episode tonight, is that we do not have Cam. He is currently under the weather, unfortunately. So we have no room for his shenanigans tonight, unfortunately. But nevertheless, the show must go on. We've had our Easter weekend, and with that being said, there has been some interesting action that has taken place this past weekend, and the big main event being was, well, I can't call it as we used to call it back in the old days, but the Glasgow Derby. We had Celtic Rangers take place this past Saturday. I watched this game. I know you certainly had your eyes on this game as well, Mayhem, and I think it's only best you take us through it yourself, because obviously, being Celtic through and through, we can sort of, go through phase to phase of what took place during those 90 minutes and what your thoughts were throughout.
Yeah, I think, obviously, but with Cam missing, I did try and secure the infamous third name that's on the logo. Alas, he was busy. Maybe it's because of certain things that happened in Merseyside. Who knows? Um, Along with some other stuff, but I guess we can go in depth on obviously Celtic and Cardiff this week because it's just us. And before we get on to all the goings on that's been happening across the world, but I the derby, strange one, on a Saturday. You kind of get used to these fixtures taking place on the Sunday and the weekend building up to it, but um, yeah, obviously, there was a lot. When these games come around at the end of the season, that there's more and more riding on it. This one had big implications for the league. Um, I think you could see that tension. There was no away fans. It was bigger crowd, the
I
biggest crowd
wondered
that we've
why it
had.
was so quiet when obviously the two Rangers goals went in. It was incredibly silent, and I knew it was the same situation in the previous derby that you had with Rangers, where there wasn't any allocation for Celtic fans at Ibrox.
Yeah, so obviously that was when we were coming back off of I think it was the COVID stuff and or whatever caused those games. This was over just the stupidness, but of the away allocations. Obviously, it'll sound like a biased view, but from everything we heard, Celtic wanted it to return to the old allocations, and Rangers weren't happy with that. Basically, it's believe it or not, it's easier to get you know 5,000 fans into a stadium than it actually is to get 800 fans in. So there were safety concerns. Celtic apparently wanted the allocations back. Rangers didn't. So in the end, Celtic just kind of says we'll just do no away fans, and that's what's been agreed. So there'll be no Celtic fans at Ibrox later on. And it does take a wee bit away from the derby. That these games were a spectacle, and they still are. It'll be the
Yeah, 100%.
most watched games. But it definitely takes something away from the game not having both sets of supporters in there. But the tension was there. The expectation was there. We've won every game at home this season. I think we went in as big favourites, and I think we see that tension. We were for the opening period of the game. We were disjointed. We
First
weren't as
25 minutes, ideally, yeah.
we weren't as crisp as we normally are. Weren't having the same penetration, and that we've come to expect under Ange. And yeah, it was a wee bit disjointed, things breaking up. Aaron Moy wasn't at I don't know what knock he recovered from, or whether he was fully fit, or whether he was still carrying something and kind of forced himself through for the game. But he wasn't at the same high level that he sort of set for himself this season. There's the whole conversation as to whether Matt O'Reilly can play as that box-to-box midfielder. Can he play with Aaron Moy? All that kind of stuff that gets sort of floated around. Um, but yeah, so kind of a disjointed, not much happening midfield battle kind of start. They pressed and tried to tuck in to stop the supply to McGregor, controlling the game, and the press definitely had an effect. And I think many people would argue that in terms of the way that they implemented their game plan, it was done pretty well through the 20 minutes. And then obviously to get the corner, the ball swings in. Alistair Johnson, who I thought had a fantastic game, and obviously got man of the match as
Man of the
well.
match, yeah, 100%.
He's sort of squabbling with Morelos. It's kind of turn and throw in. Then there's a push. Um, it's a gentle push, but it's a push. Morelos obviously then taps in, and the goal's chalked off.
Yeah.
And I think,
Ali
I mean,
McCoy's losing his shit over that decision as well.
and looking, if the commentary was fair and we didn't have, I can't even think of his name now, the absolute fucking fod that was next to him. That's an
I can't
absolute
remember who it was. Was he a
Andy
Hun as
Walker.
well? Yeah, that's
No,
it.
no,
Yeah.
he's fucking undercover, mate. He says he's us, but he's such a soup drinker. It's ridiculous. But look, I've seen it from multiple angles. I've seen them saying it's never a free kick. I've seen some Celtic fans saying that it clearly pushes him. I, I think and this is where it boils down to. It's one of these 50-50s, and we've got the rub of the green. But if it happened to us, where Kyogo was at the back post and it was again the free kick, we'd be going mental, and vice versa. Right? If it happened and he was pushing over Tavernier or Barisic, and they'd be screaming for that as well. It's two hands in the back. Is it soft? Aye, it's soft. 100% it's soft.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Kevin Clancy goes against the rule book. He obviously didn't get the memo that you don't do that to Rangers, because apparently they've drafted a formal letter to the SFA. So I'm sure that'll be interesting for the SFA to receive. I'm sure it'll be a big moment for some of the boys at the SFA getting a letter from their boyhood club. But obviously we get that, and you're hoping that wakes us up a wee bit. And I guess in some instances it did, but it still wasn't as fast flowing and as connective as we'd like to be. But yeah, obviously not too long after, we're going down the left side. The ball comes in. At first, I thought it was a really clever flick from Maeda, but I think it's actually just Matt O'Reilly takes the touch, cuts it back. Kyogo in the middle, touches it, spins, smashes it, and 1-0. And you kind of think, right, boys, we have not been great here, right? But we're one up. Let's really go up a notch and bury him, because we've been in. If we were even in first gear, you're probably being kind. So one up, and the game again sort of ebbing and flowing. And I mean, if they want to talk about, and I think this is what Celtic should be doing, right? Because Kevin Clancy had a horrific game, right? He didn't have a great
Yeah.
game for
No,
either
it wasn't
side.
great in the slightest. No.
So I think Celtic should put the boot in as well. Rangers are drafting a letter. I think we should draft a letter and agree that he was shite,
Yeah.
and finally get these frauds of refs out of the country once and for all. Rangers may come to regret that when they lose their boys, such as John Beaton and co. When they lose these absolute jobbers that do the reffing. But I think Celtic should go. You never want to complain when you lose a game because you look bitter. You want to do it from a position of strength. I think we should agree with them and say, actually, we thought he was shite as well. So he's
No, he
rancid.
absolutely was, 100%. No, I'm with you on that as well.
So obviously the free kick at the end of the half is never a free kick. Right? He wins the ball.
No,
Matt
it's not a
O'Reilly
free
wins the ball.
kick. No, it's absolutely not.
So you know they've lost a goal because of a shit decision. Obviously Tavernier hits a really really good free kick. When I first see it, I thought Joe Hart should save it, but
You know what?
as
I'm with you on that as well because Joe Hart has always been quite shaky when it comes to set pieces. Like we've seen him in the past with previous set, with these similar scenarios. Like, for example, like Griffiths, Scotland, England, not once
aye.
but twice. Gareth Bale in the Euros as well, where his positioning just isn't quite on par as to what it really should at that level.
Yeah, when it went in, that's what I thought that should never be going in. But actually, on watching it back, I just sometimes I think as much as you hate to because it's them, you just have to say, and it's him as well. Like they ban this guy up something fucking tragic, banging on about 100 goals, man, and 38 of them or whatever are penalties. It's a wee bit embarrassing, but never mind. Sometimes you just got to say, look, he struck it really, really well. The height the ball actually goes in at. Yes, it's not absolute postage stamp, but it was that dip just before. Hart
Just
doesn't
under
really
the
stand it.
just under the crossbar would
But
be most keepers.
he don't really stand a chance. And then I think, on the balance of play, that we neither team has really, pulled out big opportunities, and obviously they felt aggrieved with the goal. I think 1-1 or going in level was probably a fair reflection on how the half had gone.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we come out for the second half. I'm maybe a bit surprised that we stuck with Moy and Matt O'Reilly. I thought he would have took Moy off. It kind of did highlight how much we miss Rio Hatate. So hopefully he's back fighting fit in 3 weeks for the
It
semi
was a big
final.
loss in that midfield, I thought. Yeah, because like you said, like the first 25 minutes, it was a battle of misplaced passes between the midfield. Not even just from Celtic, it was from Rangers as well. It was just picking up on misplaced balls and then pressing from that sense. And initially, yeah, it was Celtic who first picked up on that, and then Kyogo fires in front. Tavernier then equalises through the free kick, and then the second half is a completely different game where it felt like Celtic were more on top than Rangers were in a sense in the first half.
Yeah, I definitely felt you felt that we settled much quicker in the second half
Yeah,
and played the better stuff. Obviously, they have the Morelos chance on the back post at 1-1 where he kind of swipes it in and Hart saves it. But
yeah.
apart from that, I can't really remember Hart having to do anything. And the game was kind of teetering along, and you could just kind of sense that on this kind of day, and we've seen it before in when these games are tight, it's either a moment of magic, like absolute brilliance, or it's a mistake, and you could kind of feel it was growing towards that. Then obviously we get down the right side, Jota hits a first time pass. They kind of semi clear it up in the air. Ben Davis runs over to it. Oh, fuck, I don't even know if his name's Ben actually. But anyway,
Yeah, I
did
think
fucking
Davis who where it yeah,
aye, the
it's
boy
weird.
from Liverpool,
That's
whoever the
it,
fuck he
yeah.
is. He runs over to it, and I don't quite. He gets obviously caught on, but I don't know what he's trying to do. But he kind of headers it back.
He tries to head it in the direction of like for it to go out for a throw in, and I think it just hits whoever's close to him. It might well have been Jota, and he
Yeah, it
heads
was.
it completely directly at him, and it
It
just drops to
smacks
Kyogo. It drops.
smacks Jota off his manhood.
That's it,
Um,
and then it just drops to Kyogo, who just strikes it low and hard on through the legs of McGregor, and puts Celtic back in front.
and I think that's the difference when you boil down to it. Their top scorer is their right back. right? And they'll decorate him 100 goals or whatever they were putting out fucking tweets about 100 goals. You've lost a derby and you're celebrating someone get to 100 goals. Like fucking know your audience, man. It was embarrassing. But he's he's their top goal scorer, which is it'd be a bit fucking ridiculous. But I think that's the difference between the sides right now. When we're fully fit, I think Rio runs the midfield and Jota's firing, fantastic. But just every game, you've got this absolute goal threat in Kyogo, and like you said, the ball bounces in the 6 yard box, he swivels on it, hits it low through McGregor's
And
legs,
it's not an
2-1.
easy finish either. It's by all
It's
means
just,
not an easy finish.
it was an instinctive finish, a finish taken, that showed a man full of confidence and in form, and gets us back in front. Like I said, in a game that was derived of a lot of quality. But the goal that I like the best is actually the third one. So obviously Rangers are in possession, they're playing it round, and it's just Jota's anticipation. So he comes
Yep.
off. He's playing off the left at the moment. He comes off of the left back, which is in most cases is the easy ball. The defender will take it in, turn and face. The man will be on the left back. He'll then press, and it's an easy ball out to the full back and they play on. So he steps off that, and then John Suter had to come in because Goldson shat it, was apparently sick. Um, Plays a blind pass. He doesn't realise that Jota's on his shoulder. Plays a terrible pass. Alan McGregor's got the God love him. He's the knees of an 80-year-old, that guy. And he's trying to scramble across. Jota beats him, gets around him, tucks it in,
What's a
and
goalie doing?
Mr. Goalie and Tom,
What's a
Mr.
goalie doing?
Um, and obviously then we're 3-1 up. Absolute scenes, and for the first time and for 70 minutes, you can exhale because there's a comfort blanket there. Um, and then sort of from nothing really. Obviously the game's going on. Get to the 78th minute, a corner comes in, Maeda heads it away. It comes back to the Barisic. We don't get out and press, which is unusual for us. Barisic's all the time in the world. Probably the one mistake that Alistair Johnson makes in the game. He's not aware of Tav behind him, Tavernier behind him, and he whips the cross, and yeah, Tavernier ghosting in at the back post and heads it down into the ground. And Hart doesn't really have much of a chance with that one either. It's from near point blank range, and
Yeah, exactly.
they're back in the game. Saying that, there was a few nervy moments.
Towards the
they had a wee
end, yeah.
break on. Morelos is in the box and doesn't shoot, cuts it back. Kent doesn't shoot, gets a Sakala, gets
That's
snuffed
it.
at,
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of as well. Yeah.
and then the absolute probably last kick of the game. Kevin Clancy, the guy that they've berated and sent death threats to, gives them their lifeline. Literally on the edge of the box, free kick,
And
and
Barisic fires over from close range. Yeah.
so and then obviously the game's done and the party begins. 12 points clear. And I think you could tell from just the way that Tavernier gave his interview, and Michael Beale was coming out saying that Jota handballed it for the second goal when it clearly doesn't hit his arm. Um, just just ridiculous pettiness, to he's a perfect manager for them because he is the epitome of just petty shit. All this crap he's been talking about, how the gap hasn't widened under him and he wants to win the league from when he come in.
The gap
Just
definitely
all,
has widened under him. It
I
has.
so it's just all this stupid pish that's been bounced around. He's had three chances to beat us now. He hasn't. And he fucked out Ibrox, got beat in the semi-final, beat again on Saturday. So you can tell he's reeling, and that the murmurs are starting to come out of that of Ibrox now. Is this guy, is this team, is this manager what they need? The same old regurgitated shite that comes up, that come up plenty of times under Brennan and Brendan, sorry, and maybe a bit under obviously Neil Lennon when he was doing well before that season that I've suppressed. Um, so it kind of always comes up. Gio Van Bronckhorst gets them to a European final and then gets booted. Um, so it's just it's a strange, toxic place over there on the south side of Glasgow. But you know, I'm all for it. Inject their pain. I'm living it up. And yes, obviously 12 clear now. Not our best performance. We've a couple of weeks here to go out and make sure we do the job um correctly against the teams that are remaining with a semi-final, and then obviously with the split as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out. Because
Yeah.
it was, they can play it down as much as they want, and Todd Campbell's been out in the media, and at some point at Rangers, you think someone would just grab them and say, "Boys, can you stop fucking talking because we don't win." So it's a wee bit embarrassing when we're
Yeah.
saying all this shit in the media and then we don't fucking win. So you think someone would just pull them and just say, "Look, just stay off the socials for a bit and shut your mouths because you're 12 points behind. You're you've already lost the first showpiece event of the
And
season.
you still have two fixtures left to actually play against Celtic at the same time.
Celtic have bagged one trophy. It looks like the league is, well, Celtic have one hand on the trophy now, and we're going into a semi-final. They're going for a treble. We're fighting for one trophy. Let's just know our position at the moment and stop talking. So, but it seems that the chatter goes on forever. But yeah, and gets it done again. So yeah, great great for us to obviously to get the win. There's no better feeling. I said it was a bag of nerves just because we weren't our usual self. If we look back at the semi-final, we were dominant. We were
Yeah.
so dominant. They had a wee period where they come into it for 10, 15 minutes, but for the most part we were comfortable winners. Even though it was just 2-1 that day, and it was your goal. It was a comfortable 2-1, if such a thing exists. Whereas this one felt nervy up until the end for some reason, just because probably because, like I said, we weren't our fluent self. I mean, it would be amiss not to talk about the fact that Bernabei burst through one on one with the
Oh, I couldn't
keeper
believe that.
and
Couldn't
is trying to
believe that opportunity. And he's trying to
trying to
play across to no
the
one,
invisible
basically.
fucking man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know what the fuck he's trying to do. From you're literally 12 yards out, son, just fucking hit the thing.
Just put your foot through it. That's it.
But yeah. So even with everything, and I've since gone back and watched the game. I didn't think Callum McGregor had a fantastic technical performance. But he had a proper captain's performance, and I know why people are saying like he, shades of Scott Brown and all that, but I don't even want to hear that shit. Like that's my fucking captain. Like he's not Scott Brown. He's never gonna be Scott Brown. He's his own man, and he was
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from.
he showed that fire that people have maybe said that he didn't have. That dig in grit and fight. But I think over the last, sort of 18 months here, he's really put that to bed. He's a proper captain of Celtic, and he's been phenomenal. He was phenomenal for us for a long time before, obviously playing with Scott. But since taking that armband, he's been fantastic. And yes, the performance at times was, when he get in that we rat shite bag's face, Raskin or whatever, or
That's
you
it,
know, he's,
Raskin, where he calls him a silly cunt at one point or whatever.
uh,
Yeah.
So he he's shown that fire, and it was a proper captain's performance. So, like I said, I don't think it was maybe you expect to be a bit too much from him because he's a fantastic football player.
Mm.
Celtic are lucky to have him. So you maybe expect a bit more of him on the ball, but from pulling that team through and making sure that we did the right things in the right moments and having a leader, um, he's been fantastic and he sets the standard. And I said, Alistair Johnson, I think, was
Outstanding that game.
fantastic.
100% outstanding, yeah.
He absolutely relishes it. Brian Kent absolutely goes missing again in these games, in
Yep.
another one of these games. And then, obviously, Kyogo and Jota grabbed the goals. And again, I think Jota had his
I
best
didn't think
game.
Jota. Yeah, exactly. I don't think he had his best game, and then past that, I mean, I don't think McGregor was great. obviously Aaron Moy, who come back from the knock he had was probably the least effective player on the field for Celtic, and then past that, I think the next one you think of is probably like Greg Taylor, who was okay, but then yeah, it was a very again it was
I
a
think
performance that we
someone that
didn't expect from Celtic. It wasn't their best performances, like you said.
I think someone that's flying under the radar, and not so it's watching it back, because I think Starfelt had a good game.
I
He's
thought
come
he
under.
had a good game as well. Yeah, I thought
I think
Starfelt was good.
he's come under a lot of stick about how clumsy and that he's been on the ball, and the Celtic, certain patches of the Celtic fans, are almost saying he's building up to a mistake, and he isn't the calm, cool, collected persona that's next to him. Like Cameron Carter-Vickers is on another level. He strolls it in this league, but I think he was phenomenal. He was strong, brilliant in the air. And him and Cameron Carter are still, unbeaten domestically. So, obviously a really formidable partnership. And we give away a few slack goals. Well, we give away one slack goal. One's a brilliant free kick that, what can you do? Sometimes you just got to
Yeah,
say, it happens, and we go again. So yeah, watching it back the second time without the nerves, without all the emotion, you can start to see things that you didn't see in the game. Obviously, everything's heightened in the game when you're watching it live. Every mistake, feels like the worst one in the world, and when realistically on the balance of play, we weren't anywhere near our best. But Rangers didn't create much at all. Like I said, apart from obviously the free kick, that Morelos chance, the Tavernier's header at the back post.
this was it. Yeah, like,
Heart
I
doesn't have
think
to
I
do
think
much.
Rangers really, they only created, half opportunities from being on the break, where it came from misplaced passes from the midfield of
But
Celtic.
I think that he starts in the team anyway most weeks, Days in Maeda, but I think there was a conscious decision that he was always going to play him on the left for this game because
Yeah,
I imagine that Ange expected Fashion Sakala to play on the right, and Maeda's probably the only person with that work rate that can go sort of toe to toe in terms of pace with him. So the fact that Michael Beale set up with Todd Cantwell, Hillman, and Kent was, that's never gonna.
it was a
You,
bizarre front three to go with, wasn't it?
and then you've Morelos up top, so there's never going to be anything in behind. Right, it's all going to be in front. I think Ali McGuire even said it, early in the match that there's not going to be much in behind here. It's all going to be in front. And Rangers needed, to score from either a set piece or the breakdown of a set piece because they weren't going to create anything else unless there was a mistake. And fortunately enough for us, we capitalised on there too, and the shaky moments that we had that they didn't take advantage of. But I think it just shows that killer instinct. When a team just knows how to win, and you have players like Kyogo that are just in the right place at the right time, and
Yeah,
and they bury those chances. That's the difference. And I mean, like I said, Jota's intelligence to leave. He's kind of designated man and push up on Shooter to anticipate the poor pass, get in and finish. I know there's a load of videos going around of the Larson goal at Ibrox and the sort of comparisons between the two. But yeah, it's been a great weekend. Absolutely buzzing.
yeah,
And now we've just got to go and close this out and get it done. And then, like I said, in 3 weeks' time, we do it all again. And the spectacle, the spectacle's back. I think I hate Hampden. I think it's a shite stadium, but at least you know in those games, it's 50-50. The fans will
yeah.
both be raw, and the atmosphere will be white hot. And I'm confident that we can go back to Hampden and repeat what we did in the final, get over the line, and then we're on for a treble. And then what does Michael Beale say? If Michael Beale comes in, he's been in now from wherever the fuck they sacked Van Bronckhorst, whenever it was, fucking December or whenever the
I
fuck
think
it
it was
was.
before the World Cup, wasn't it? Or during the World
So,
Cup?
so if he comes in and he's had that amount of time, he plays us. Even if they win the dead rubber at Ibrox, if they play us and all the games that have mattered. The game at Ibrox where they drew 2-2, Gia away, a late goal. You know, the final that they lose, the game at home where they can close it to 6, they lose, and then if they go and lose the semi-final, and we're on for a treble, I think that he'll have a difficult time, explaining and selling, the ideas and the foundations of what he wants to do at Rangers because I don't know, it just seems like an absolute fucking carrier bag, man. Like the way that you know, he was bamming up all this shite before, fucking, uh, I've not lost at Celtic or I've won more than I've lost at Celtic, whatever the fuck he was, and basically trying to take credit for, them winning the league that season under Gerrard and all this. Guys are rat, but he fits them perfectly. All the shite they fucking bang on about Brown Brogues and all this fucking standards and all this utter gob that no one else in world football gives a flying fuck about. Right? Just them with their fucking bike and weird fetish with the royal family tucked away in their fucking club. Like, this shit that they're absolutely yammering on about because they're fuck all else. And if they come out of a season, I don't think he quite understands because I think it's difficult. He's been at the club for a little while, but he was at Rangers when he was in this transitional phase, and then obviously Gerrard left shortly after winning his league title, and I don't really think that he understands the expectation. If you don't win a cup when you're at one of the two big clubs in Glasgow, right? So if you lose the league, really you need to be at least winning if you haven't already, put the League Cup, you need to be going and winning the Scottish Cup. If you get out of a season, even if you've only been in from November, December, and the fuck he was in, you don't win a trophy. I think he doesn't quite understand that all the fucking stupid catchphrases about I inherited the gap and all this crap he's been banging on about. I think he'll quite understand the intensity that the Rangers fans will want him removed from the football club and pretty swiftly. If he goes up against us, whatever 4 or 5 times and he doesn't beat us, they'll lose confidence. A lot of them are already losing confidence. The fact
Yeah.
again they've come up short. That there's already that chatter. So if he loses the semi-final and then was to lose the absolute dead rubber at Ibrox, if it gets to that point, because I can't see him putting them early in the split, with the potential of us securing the league there. I can't see him doing that. Um, so it could end up being a complete dead rubber. So even if he, pressures off and he gets a result in that game, does that save him if we go on and do a treble? I don't think so because the weekend obviously started um pretty much as I had foreseen in the last podcast. So Connor Wickhamson, get on the balloons. Maybe not after today, but on Friday. I hope you did a few balloons.
Well,
Hope
one
you
goal,
enjoyed yourself.
one goal, 2 assists. I think it's fair to say that the South Wales Derby was water under the bridge for Connor Wickham. And speaking of the Orange Bastards, yeah, we came away from Bloomfield Road with a 3-1 victory over Blackpool. And, I mean, it wasn't a great performance, but it just, we were clinical and we took our chances. And like I said, a goal and 2 assists from Connor Wickham. Just felt like, everything was forgotten about a week prior to that game. And so, massive result for us, especially over relegation rivals at the moment, to come away and put us in a good position. And then earlier this afternoon came around and we failed to follow up on that result and fell short to Sunderland at home where we lost 1-0. And it was another under par performance, especially at home, and where we allowed Sunderland to have possession for the majority of the game. And second half came around where it easily could have gone either way, around the hour mark, and even before the first half came to its close, it was, we had our chances, but Sunderland had more chances than we did. And then they get a free kick from a good 25 yards out, and Alex Pritchard, who we know best from being on the books at Tottenham Hotspur and was on loan to a number of Championship clubs during his time at Tottenham, and he bends a free kick around a 3-man wall, which is looking at it, I'm thinking you shouldn't really have a 3-man wall when a team has a set piece from 25 yards out at most. And he easily bends a ball round a 3-man wall, hits you inside the post, and then it's an easy tap in for Kirkin, which puts them 1-0 up. And then we woke up, we showed a bit of urgency and wanting to push forward. Unfortunately, in the first half, we had a few players, especially Jaden Philogene, and I think it was Romain Sawyers who went off before half time, who were two key players going into this final running of the season, who have been massive for us. To go off after 35 minutes was quite a big factor for us, because Jaden Philogene is an individual figure that I see that is one piece of business that Cardiff should go out of their way to reach out to Villa and get him down to South Wales for another season, to push us to, like I said, I say every episode it feels like that we should be a team that are in that top 6 bracket and that we should be pushing for playoffs. Jaden Philogene fits that profile. He should be part of that first 11 who can play a big part in that happening, and to see him go off before half time was that there was, especially myself, there was a lot of heads that were that rolled and thought, like, what's going on here? Is it injury? Has it picked up a knock? Is it underperforming? We know as well as we do, to one another, and so it was quite a puzzling decision that Sabri took, but he knows better than we do. And we brought on Jack Simpson, who was another centre-back. We brought on Joe Rule, our captain and central midfielder. And so it looked like he took more of a defensive step in terms of that game, because, in one sense it felt like Sunderland were on top of us at one point, and I don't know if that was part of the decision that Sabri decided to make, where he brought, he made 2 early substitutions for us to, have some stability at the back and not allow Sunderland the amount of space that they had originally. And so, but ultimately we got punished in the end. They got a very cheap goal in my mind, and we just failed to capitalise on the chances that we managed to make. And after such a Good Friday, it was a very disappointing afternoon for us today, and all of a sudden, just within a flick, we find ourselves back in a very tough position where we're just outside the bottom 3, and we saw Huddersfield come away with I think it was a 3 or 4-1 victory on Friday against Watford, which was a very bizarre result for them, and a very outstanding result on paper.
They're flying at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah. Like Neil Warnock is doing bits of them at the moment, and at this
give
rate,
up a 2-0 lead, didn't they? This afternoon they were 2 up against Blackburn, ended up drawing that game.
That was it, yeah. And it was a late goal save, a point for Blackburn this afternoon, and we failed to sort of, I think it was a great opportunity for us to really take advantage of that, and we failed to do so. I'm pretty sure that I think QPR may have came away with a point this afternoon. I know they were 2-1 down at one point against West Brom away.
Yeah, 2-2 at finish. Yeah.
Was it 2-2 in the end? And so that's the thing, and I've said this before, like, we need to take advantage of results around us, because they will play a big part in what dictates our season in this last stretch of games. And
I think
today,
that Rotherham game will take on, obviously. I think there's going to be a lot of needle in it now, a lot of sort of bad feeling because of the way that it's sort of come about. But
yeah,
it'll be massive. I think I see that they won this afternoon as well. So I think Wigan and Blackpool got beat. I like what you did there with the Good Friday bit as well. It was nice, and what made it even nicer was obviously beating Mick McCarthy, and then they bin Mick McCarthy. That
yeah, got
was,
the sack. Yeah, I know. I forgot to add that little bit of info in there, and yeah, we actually got Mick McCarthy the boot, and that was quite nice to see. And I was after that result on Friday and seeing him get the boot, I was really hypothetically hoping for the same for when we play Huddersfield down the road, and we can do the same with Neil Warnock. But as expected, Neil Warnock is flying with Huddersfield at the moment. It seems like I wouldn't say he's steered clear of relegation with Huddersfield, but if you put that in comparison with the likes of us and QPR and Rotherham, he has steered clear of relegation with them. And the way Huddersfield's momentum is at the moment, we can, it seems very confident that he'll keep them up come the end of the season.
I mean, Huddersfield was such a strange position. I mean, in the playoffs last season, very close to getting to the playoff final, and then they found themselves absolutely scrapping at the bottom with the likes of Wigan and Blackpool and Reading and QPR. The teams that have been more commonly in and around that I kind of set up for a few years. So it was strange that they were there, and I'm sure if you as a Huddersfield fan, you would be expecting at some point to catch form. But to beat Borough, Watford, and then throw away and take a point from the Blackburn game. But they must have been looking at that stretch of games thinking, if we can get through here with 4 points, that'll be fantastic. And they've picked up seven, and I think they're going to be they're maybe going to be tough to catch just with the good energy and the good vibes that are going to be flowing through that club. And we've seen when it's going well at a club the way that Warnock can really build on that and obviously keep it going. I still don't think QPR are a fantastic side, and I think they're in just the way that they are. I know that the results have got to be a bit better from lately, but it's difficult when you're a club and you've almost forgotten what that winning feeling's like. It's difficult to then get over the line,
Mm.
and I don't see him picking up too many more results. I could be proven wrong, but I think you look at Blackpool and Wigan, I think they're probably gone at the moment with the way that they're playing and the points total they're on. It's getting bigger and bigger week in, week out. So it's going to come down to that section that Huddersfield, Rotherham, QPR, Reading, yourselves, all sort of clustered together. And like you said, all of a sudden you could have a 6 point swing one week. You could, things could go the right way. And that's those games against Huddersfield and Rotherham will be massive and will be crucial. But hopefully he can get back up to the New York Stadium or whatever the fuck they call themselves. It's a hot sunny day, so they don't have to worry about drainage, and you can go out and batter them.
They'll probably abandon it for a heat wave or something ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be stupid, but it's difficult. Like, especially at this stage of the season of how the game went today. It's again, you sort of overthink ahead with the fixtures coming up. We play Sheffield United away next, which is Bramall Lane is a fortress when they show up in numbers, and it's a difficult place to go to. And Sheffield United themselves are a tough side to come against. And then after that, away to Watford. Watford, the way things are going, at Watford at the moment aren't so great, but at the same time, you can't disregard that on their day, Watford are one of the toughest teams to go to, and Vicarage Road is one of the tough places to go to in the Championship, and going there midweek is not going to be easy by all means. After that, we have Stoke at home. I mean, we saw how we did against Sunderland today. Like, Sunderland prior to the game today had only won one game in 9. And so there was a lot of us that, again, were counting our chickens before the first whistle blew and fancied our chances against Sunderland. And ultimately, things didn't go our way. And Stoke are one of those teams that are in form at the moment and climbing up the table at the moment and putting out a lot of good results. And
let's just pause for a minute here, because as I see someone tweeted out this, and it is 100% true. Where the fuck have Preston come from? Like, talking about teams like absolutely flying up. I think the last time I checked the league, like, they were almost at mid-table, closer to, the drop zone or getting dragged into it, and all of a sudden, they're literally, I think they're just outside, a point outside or on goal difference just outside the playoffs.
Like, in all due respect to Preston, I don't think they'll make the playoffs. Because I don't think they've got the quality to get over the line to find themselves in the top 6. I think, from based off of playing them a few weeks ago, they're not a great side that possesses a lot of quality, and I don't think in terms of quality they will. I mean, if they were to hypothetically make it into the playoffs, I don't see themselves getting themselves over the line. I think there'll be better quality around them. The likes of Luton, the likes of Sheffield United, that will overcome them. I think they've just been on a very fortunate run of picking up 3 points left, right and centre. But I think if you look at their squad as a whole, I don't think they would be good enough to withstand the opposition that comes within their way in that playoff bracket. And then if they were to somehow overcome that opposition, they'll go straight back down. I don't think they'll even have the funds to keep themselves up in the Premier League regardless. They'd be far from it. And
well, I mean, it's so difficult because, looking at I know that obviously we've seen over the last couple of years, some of these teams come to the forefront, but looking at the playoffs, the fact that Luton, Millwall, and Blackburn are 3 of the teams. Obviously, Borough, the big side in there. Blackburn would, you speak to a Blackburn fan, they think they're an enormous club because of their '93 exploits. But Middlesbrough aside, Luton, Millwall, Blackburn, hardly screaming, massive football clubs. And then you look at the clubs on, the periphery. Really, you can argue Coventry, 3 points outside, but Norwich, have been so inconsistent. Are they going to go on a run to get in? I mean, I think Borough will be looking at the playoffs and feeling very confident no matter who gets in. Maybe if Norwich snuck in, it'd be a bit of a different story, or if West Brom go on a run, or even you could argue really that Watford aren't completely gone yet because they're only 6 points behind. But I think Borough have got to be looking at those playoffs and feeling pretty confident.
I think that's what makes the Championship so entertaining, because I watched Watford earlier and they had gone 2-0 up at Coventry and then ended up drawing the game 2-2. Coventry pulled back from 2-0 down to draw 2-2 with them, and it was the same thing with Middlesbrough earlier this evening where Bristol had gone 2-0 up against them at Ashton Gate, and then Borough managed to pull it back to 2-2. It's just it's bizarre of how how teams' mindset can drastically change within a flash in terms of making it into that playoff spots, and how teams just out that's how tight the championship is at the moment, because I mean, even the likes of Bristol City, who are mid-table, can within 9 points they can find themselves up in the top six. Coventry can find themselves in the top six after 6 to 9 points, and there's still at least 24 points to play for at this point in the season. And so I think this is the period of the season where a lot of teams can really surprise the teams that we expect that would be there come the end of April. Like the likes of Middlesbrough. Like, how heavily have we? I've heavily backed Middlesbrough for the last couple of weeks. Michael Carrick has done a superb job with Middlesbrough, and they look to be a team that would be, challenging Sheffield United for second place initially.
Yeah, I thought they'd chase them down. They've wilted a bit over the last 3 games. I think I was looking at there. They haven't won, and subsequently Luton have gone third, and all of a sudden Luton are only 5 points off.
Yeah.
Burnley obviously beating Sheffield United tonight and basically wrapping up the league. So Vincent Kompany and Burnley will be back to grace the Premier League again and
They
get
will
relegated
indeed.
again, because that's what they do. So, and I know that if there's any Burnley fans, that'll trigger them and they'll be telling me how many years they were in the Premier League. Good for you, you're still shit. But I mean, remember that year they got into Europe and barely fucking beat Aberdeen? Fucking me, get back in your hole. But yeah, champions elect. I mean, I had a glance at Middlesbrough fixtures there. They play Norwich pretty soon. They play Luton pretty soon as well. So Luton have got some big games. But yeah, I think within reason, within the Championship, kind of maybe Blackpool and Wigan aside, you don't get an easy game. Those two look drastically out of place, and look League One bound. But yeah, like you said, it brings a massive entertainment factor in the fact that it is such a competitive division and things can swap around so quickly. And all of a sudden, like you said, you think Borough are going to chase Sheffield United down, and then they get a few poor results and kind of chops and changes. And I love watching the playoffs and the Championship. I always think they're brilliant games, but sometimes weird teams get up, man. Like obviously when Reading went up the first time, it was strange. Hull getting up into the Premier League, and you just God, imagine with all the respect in the world, not so much towards Millwall, but can you imagine Luton or Millwall gracing the Premier League? Like,
Can you imagine Luton overtaking Sheffield United to get into the automatic positions, and then Millwall to
uh,
go up through the playoffs?
would their stadium, would Luton Stadium even meet the requirements for the Premier League? They're fucking away
I
ends
think
in
we've
back
discussed. I think
gardens.
we've discussed this before with Millwall. Would they meet the requirements of?
I think Millwall would. The Den
Millwall
holds the,
would, but
the Den holds
Luton are a
20,000.
bigger question as to whether or
I mean,
not
if
they would.
the fucking Vitality is Premiership band, then the Den would be fine. But Luton's whatever it's called, Kenilworth Road or something. I'm not sure.
Kenilworth, that sounds right. That sounds about right. Yeah, Kenilworth
But
Road. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, uh, it would be it would be incredibly strange. It would be fun, but they'd be living by the mantra that they're here for a good time, not a long time. Um, but yeah, it would. I mean, I can never get over their stadium. I'm sure Luton fans get sick of people banging on about Kenilworth Road.
Yeah.
Well, capacity of 10,000. So, like I said, the Vitality is smaller than that. So it would it would actually meet requirements because the Vitality is fucking tiny.
The Premier League action that we had over this past weekend. I think the big game to really start off with was Arsenal, who went 2-0 up at Anfield and ended up drawing 2-2 to Liverpool. I don't know if you caught any of that action from that game, Joel.
Yeah, I watched it. Really strange game. Like really, really strange game in the essence that Arsenal were taking them apart.
Hmm.
Um, I don't buy into all this shite about Anfield and it's a special ground and all this atmosphere bollocks. But one of the days that I'm going to completely contradict myself. Um, I don't buy into it usually, but one of the days that Anfield is a special place is around this type of around this time of the year, and obviously they had the Hillsborough um, memorial, and the cop was showing the number 97 for the fans that tragically lost their lives um, in in that on that horrible day, and it's a monumental day for Liverpool supporters, and rightfully so. To remember those that went to a football game and never come home, and you know the justice that they had to fight so desperately for. Um, so it is a really, really almost sort of like spiritual and something. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it, but there's an aura about the place on those
Yeah,
days.
emotions do run high in
Um,
those spectacles. Yeah.
and Arsenal kind of you know quelled that within 8 minutes. Again, just Liverpool have been so poor defensively. Van Dijk's having a really off season for him, and tries to clear it or miscontrols it. I know Martinelli gets in between and pokes them one up, and within 8 minutes, that build up and the memorial service and the "You'll Never Walk Alone" and build into the game. The stadium goes flat. Not really much of a response, and within whatever it was, half hour, 40 minutes, they're two down, and you're thinking, Jesus Christ, this could be anything that Arsenal want it to be at this point.
Hmm.
And then just the most weirdest thing turns the game, and it's Granit Xhaka almost. I mean, I looked at it and thought, see the way that he leaves the elbow in. If Trent, and obviously he doesn't do this, and I'm glad he doesn't do this, but if Trent was to go down, which 90% of Premier League footballers would have done,
Yeah.
and that went to VAR review, I think he would have got sent off. The way that he left his arm
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Obviously, Trent is from that area. You know, he's obviously a Liverpool fan. He would have grown up. He would have understood, the day. Um, and maybe that's because I think it was even called out on commentary that some of the criticism of Trent is that sometimes he looks really lethargic on the pitch, and he obviously had a real fire. Went head to head with Xhaka, and the game just turned on that. All of a sudden, the next couple of minutes, Salah's got him back in the game, and even just before half time, Henderson had a chance, and it could have been 2-2. And then the second half, going to come out, of Liverpool were were going straight for the
And
jugular
then
from the get go.
Salah misses the penalty as well.
I mean,
After the first 45 minutes, which
you
was a
could,
big opportunity.
yeah, I mean, get that boy off pens. Like, he's missed his last two, Bournemouth, and then obviously this was a big one. But even then, the fans stuck with him. They were singing Salah's name, and you could just feel, sometimes you can just feel in a game of football that the next goal is coming. You're maybe not sure what way it is, but there's definitely one coming. And obviously Liverpool, Bobby Firmino off the bench, and he nods in. And then to be fair to Ramsdale, he pulls out two fantastic saves to make sure that Arsenal end up leaving with a point. Because so easily, that deflection of a Salah that looks like he's going in the absolute top corner that he saves, and then obviously right at the back stick at the end of the game, Konate makes that big save from Nunez at 2-1 as well, where he's going through. Ramsdale was fantastic.
Ramsdale was incredible.
Rightfully
That
got man of
last
the match,
stretch of
which
the game, yeah.
if you'd have said, when Jesus nods in the second that Ramsdale was going to get man of the match here, it just didn't seem plausible in any way, shape, or form. Because, like I said, at that point, it just felt like Arsenal, it could be any number they wanted. But yeah, look, a really good, entertaining game of football. Um, And any time this happens, you hear about it for 27 million years after about how the Premier League's the best league in the world and what a great advert it is and blah blah blah. But no, it was an enthralling game. Glad I watched it, but it does kind of underline, what we'd been saying about this Arsenal team, and Arsenal fans had, been reputing and were never there to kind of say, well, you may have a point, blah blah blah. Is that this is a really really young team, and at 2-0 up at Anfield. You've done the hard work. I know that it isn't a youngster that gets involved. It's Xhaka. He's older. He's experienced. But they just got drawn into a real dogfight. Martinelli's throwing himself to the ground, and they just got really dragged into this match that they didn't need to be. Because for 36 minutes, they were popping the ball around Liverpool like they were not there. That Arsenal team, and I think they'll grow under Mikel Arteta, but if that Arsenal team in a couple of years, once they've been together and they've gone on these runs, and whatever happens at the end of the season, once they've been together and gained a little bit more experience, I just think that they see their game out pretty comfortably. They got
Yeah.
dragged into it, and ultimately now, it's back in City's hands. So
This
if
is it,
City,
yeah. Does it really mean that it's back in City's hand? Like, obviously
if
they
City win
ca-
all their games,
they
they win
beat
the league.
they beat Southampton 4-1 away, and they got a game in hand over Arsenal. And
And this is it,
they win that game, they're within 3 points of Arsenal.
with them to play at the Etihad. So,
Exactly.
the screw's starting to turn now. And we've said it a few times, and they've come through it. But this is the Championship rounds now. This is, where United would have chased people down. City have been here, done this, had to go toe for toe. When Liverpool and them were pushing each other to ridiculous heights, that they had to win game after game after game. And this is where champions come to the front. And City, over the last few weeks, you've just been seeing them start to click. Really pumping Leipzig, putting in real, real performances. Kevin De Bruyne looking really, really good at Southampton. Looking like a settled team, like the strong team. Jack Grealish has been really, really good the last couple of
He's
weeks
had
as
a
well.
brilliant season, in all fairness, Jack Grealish. I think he's really
And
stood out for
since
City this season.
since he's come back from the World Cup, I think he's playing been playing decent over the last couple of games, though. The last sort of 3, 4 weeks, he's really gone up a level.
Yeah.
And that's what these Championship players do as well. They go to that next level in these moments, and Arsenal, everyone's fighting, everyone is scrapping. So that game that looks easy on paper, you know, all of a sudden swings, and people realise that actually we may need to get something out of Arsenal, because Palace have gone off to Ellen Road and thump Leeds, and who could have seen that happening? Everyone saying sacking Patrick Vieira was a strange decision, and then they've gone and done this. So
Yeah.
it's
And they went and
you know,
pumped Leeds 5-1 at Ellen Road.
so all of a sudden the likes of whoever plays Arsenal, I don't know, I'll look at their fixtures to make sure it's accurate, but you know you're you're looking at teams like, so they may be looking at West Ham, Southampton, Forest, Wolves, thinking, that they've not been good this season, but actually that they can't even think, oh well, shit, that's a game we can write off. That they may need to get something. So, you know, this is when the football becomes really, really interesting. They go away to West Ham, that's in that dogfight as well, as we get interrupted by someone revving their fucking Skoda up.
I
Um,
fucking hate Easter break for these reasons. All these kids out on their fucking mopeds. Go to bed, you cunts.
but yeah, so the West Ham, there's Southampton at home, and then they've that run. They go to the Etihad, then they're at home to Chelsea. Chelsea that have had a really poor season, but would have nothing more than to quash their London rivals' title hopes. Away to Newcastle, at home to Brighton. You know that's a tough run, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. But we know that City have it in their locker to just knock it
Easily,
out of the park.
yeah, exactly, and close that gap and potentially overtake Arsenal in the running for the
Champions
title.
League, the fact that City are still fighting on three fronts may come into it as well. Obviously, they play Bayern on Tuesday. They're still in the FA Cup and the league, so they've still
Yeah.
got a lot of games to go. And like I said, everyone's going to be fine. So even though the fact they in their running they play Fulham, they play Leeds, they play Everton, they play Brentford, games that you'd expect City to go and win. Everyone's fighting their own race. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
But I've said it for a little while. I just think that it's maybe this is a fantastic season for Arsenal, but I just think it's maybe a season too early. I don't know what's up with Saliba, but when you replace him with Rob Holding, we see the mistake. He gave away the penalty. It's just not the same caliber. The drop off is massive.
Yeah.
Um, so that could have a big thing.
This is it.
City
Yeah.
look to be clicking, and I think if they can continue that, they'll go on and win the league.
That's what I mean. Like, the drop off isn't so bad when it comes to City. If they lose Ruben Diaz or John Stones, for example, they can turn to the likes of Laporte,
Yeah,
whereas Arsenal turn to the likes of Rob Holding if they lose Saliba or Gabriel or Ben White, and they have to turn to the likes of, like you said, they have to turn to players who are just not at that level and at that caliber,
yeah.
as City have on their books. And so, no, and this is the thing, I think it's completely turned on its head now. This is where City now need to pounce on Arsenal and really chase them down for that title. But by all means, like you said, they've got the FA Cup that they're still part of. They're still part of the Champions League. And so it's going to be, at the same time, it'll be difficult for them to keep up in terms of match fitness and for them to have rotation. I mean, they have the rotation options, but,
They've still got people to come back as well. Like Phil Foden obviously picked up a knock. He's still got to
yeah.
come back in. It's scary that level. I mean, even like Haaland's a freak, but
And we saw him come
Alvarez.
back against Southampton, and he put
But
two
then,
past them with ease. And
but even before that game, we were talking last week about Julian Alvarez having his best game against Liverpool, and he'll probably feel disappointed that he wasn't starting. So it's just throughout the squad they recruit so well, and of course they're going to recruit well. They've got bags and bags of money, so
this
they
is
can go
it.
out and buy the
And this
best
is what
talent
they,
from
yeah,
that.
and this is it. And this is what City have at their disposal. They don't. Arsenal don't have the level of players at their disposal as City have.
And they're probably the best manager in the world. They've this institution that just promises trophies. So, you know, people are always going to pick that, even if they're only playing 15 games a season. They know that they're probably going to be playing, picking up trophies and medals and stuff like that. So Arsenal have done fantastic to be where they are to develop the likes of Martinelli and Bakary, um, Saka, and the likes of Odegaard. They took a big risk on him, brought him in. He's been fantastic. Ben White, they took a big risk and he's played most of the season at right back. But to bring Saliba back in, obviously he got Young Player of the Year in Liga On.
And he
But
got all.
they bring him back in, took the risk. He's been fantastic. They've recruited well in Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko. And then obviously took the risk on Ramsdale. So they have done it, but it's not that same caliber, and the drop off is massive. Like first 11 for the first 11, I think it's a tight game because Arsenal have been incredibly consistent. But we see, you know, the fact that Rob Holding compared to Saliba, on Sunday was just a huge drop off, and Arsenal have got to be doing everything. I don't know how long he's out for. I don't know how long the injury is, but they've got to be doing everything to get it back. Obviously, the goal as well. Uh, the goal comes down to Zinchenko's side, and I know he plays a slightly different role, but I feel so bad for KT because I honestly think he's a phenomenal left back. I've seen the links that apparently Newcastle are looking at him, that apparently City are interested because obviously they're without a traditional left back, and I hope he gets his move, mate. Because if Arteta's, he's the
I
manager,
think
he can pick
City would be
whoever he wants to
perfect
play.
for him. City would
Well,
honestly be perfect for
I
KT.
don't. I don't know if he struggles to play the inverted fullback, and that's why they're bringing Zinchenko because obviously that's how Arteta wants to play, and that's how Guardiola plays.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that Newcastle may actually be a better fit for him. because the way they want we see with Kieran Trippier, the
Mm.
way they want to bomb up, and I think that may be a better fit for him. He's used to that kind of really passionate fan base, obviously coming from us, and the Geordies are. It's very much like that. It's a fishbowl, it's a bubble up there in the northeast, and he wouldn't be too far then from home. London's a long way. If he's in Newcastle, he isn't that far from obviously from Glasgow, a couple of hours up the road. So I think Newcastle would fit him for plenty of reasons.
Yeah.
But if City would have come knocking, you couldn't say no, could you?
No, 100%. No. I mean, we haven't got Cam with us tonight, obviously, and by all means, there's no guarantee that he would have watched the game, but a lot of controversy surrounding the fixture we had between Spurs and Brighton.
I haven't actually seen this.
VAR controversy, but the fact is that PMGOL have come out and admitted that they've made a massive mishap in awarding Brighton a penalty within that game. So Spurs have come out and won the game 2-1, but there was a strong case for Brighton to be awarded a penalty, which was not, that was ultimately not awarded to them.
I don't want to watch. Don't want to watch the 8-minute highlights. I'll watch the 3 minutes and get up to speed as you're talking about, because I haven't seen all this.
And so nonsense. There was a massive call for Brighton to be awarded the penalty, and I think this was prior to Tottenham taking the lead as well. Now there was controversy prior to the game between I can't remember the interim manager of Tottenham and De Zerbi, but the interim coach for Tottenham had come out and basically disrespected De Zerbi and said that he had basically carried on the good work that Graham Potter had left at Brighton.
Mm-hmm.
And so, shaking hands before the game even started, De Zerbi had called him out on it.
Mm-hmm.
Which ultimately led during the game to a sending off between the two managers. It's the penalty here on Matoma. So there is contact made by, I think that's Højbjerg, and there was nothing given on it. And then Tottenham got up the other end inevitably and take the lead through Harry Kane. But prior to that goal, there's a strong case that there should be a penalty here awarded to Brighton by Matoma going down under the challenge of Pierre Højbjerg. Now there is contact there on his left ankle, and pretty strong contact as well.
Well, I mean that game looked like an absolute colossal.
I mean, it's an absolute train wreck of a game. And then the second goal by Harry Kane, great finish by all means. But
I mean, the Danny Welbeck one that gets ruled out as well, I think it's for another handball. Strange game. Lot of video assistant referee getting involved, which is always fun. But strange, big result for Tottenham. Obviously
it
needed
is a big
it.
result, yeah. I mean, that is a weird goal from Welbeck as well.
That's what I mean. It's strange that one gets ruled out. So there's a lot there to I'd probably have to look at it more in depth. There's a lot in there to kind of break down. But Spurs obviously benefit and then go and capitalize. So I can only imagine that they don't have a manager in yet because they've approached people and they've just been knocked back. Because why would you sack someone if you didn't have a plan?
This is it. I don't. Tottenham as a club is just a massive question mark right now.
If they get on the blower to Nagelsmann or Zidane, they're saying, "No, you're all right, you're grand."
No, they are, because they're like, where do you want me to take this football club as a whole? Are you happy with top four? Do you want me take them into the Champions League and go the distance? Do you want me to go further than the top four? Do you want me to challenge the likes of
Uh,
City and Arsenal? Are you going to back me to challenge the
That's it.
likes of Arsenal and City?
I just
There's
don't believe
you
that.
don't get that sense whatsoever with Tottenham as a
I
club.
don't believe that the board would back any project. They may say
No,
stuff to get people through the door, but and only place that Conte and Mourinho haven't won trophies, Tottenham. So yeah, just strange. Kane, I think Kane will leave in the summer, and then what do they do?
this is
Because
it.
that's you know when they lose, obviously a world-class striker that's going to absolutely guarantee you 20 goals in the Premier League. Then what do you do?
This is it. Because you lose Harry Kane in the summer to United. You don't sign Kulusevski on a permanent from Juventus, you know, regardless if they need the money or not. And then you try and replace Harry Kane's goals with the likes of, most likely, who can brought up, someone like Ollie Watkins or Ivan Toney, and then you try and replace the likes of Kulusevski. This is the thing. They need to, as a football club, they need to be attracting higher than what they've got right now,
I think
especially
they
if
just
they.
they they just need to decide what they are, right?
That's
And then
it. They don't know
you
what
know
they are right now
you
because
know
Levy's looking at the club, not even at the club itself. He's looking at the stadium as to, ooh, I've got the Super Bowl this year. Maybe I'll get WrestleMania next year. Maybe the year after that, I'll get AEW to come round for a year or so. Like, it's, he's looking at the venue to be a worldwide attraction.
which it is.
Then
I mean, obviously we've seen the Joshua fight there. There's concerts on. I think that the Red Hot Chili Peppers or whatever are booked in. So the stadium gets all the plaudits. People turn up and they go, "Oh, what a fantastic stadium!" But there's no point in having this fantastic stadium when it's a football stadium and your
this is
trophy
it.
cabinet's
This
fucking
isn't the O2
empty.
Arena.
Exactly. It's a first and foremost, this is a football club, and this is what happens when businessmen, you know, however savvy or have however savvy and lucrative and successful they are as businessmen, they need to remember that they're a football club, and fans won't be happy to say, "Oh fuck, we've got a lovely stadium that I pay £1,500 for a season book to, and I watch us finish fifth." Like that's not going to cut it and get put out of the Champions League by an average AC Milan team. It's not going to cut it, and it's going to come under. But who do they get in? They brought in Mourinho and Conte that moved away from the ethos of Spurs. Spurs were always a team that were going to play on the front foot, play attacking football. Mourinho moved that away from Conte, moved that away from them. So the last couple of years have been under that domain. Do you stick with that domain and try and bring someone in, or do you completely tear up the absolute foundations of the football club, go back to playing, what you have been known for more historically, and play, football that's easy on the eye. But then, who are you going out and getting? Because I absolutely guarantee they've contacted several people, and they've just said, "No, do you know what? I don't fancy it."
This is it,
So,
yeah.
so
And
who's
and
out
and
there?
and this is it. Like, and you say who's out there right now, you guarantee that Nagelsmann has turned around and said, "No, don't fancy it." Turn around to Zidane, "No, don't fancy it." Who do you look to past that? Do you look at
Yeah,
Graham Potter, who, had his big shot at Chelsea, things didn't work out? Does he take, in a sense, it's like a sideward step to go to Tottenham because obviously Chelsea, things haven't gone so well for them as a club as a whole this season. Does he
but
look
Chelsea will be back. Right?
Chelsea? Yeah, because they've got the
Like,
backing through Todd
yeah,
Bowley. This is
and
the
and
thing.
they just don't accept. You can say that they're harsh with the managers and whatever, but they just don't accept, not being in the mix. So Chelsea, and that's another thing to the Arsenal point where people are saying the Arsenal have really got to make it this season because Liverpool won't be as off it as they are this season. Chelsea will probably be back next season once, the plethora of signings have gone out and signed gel and, have been around each other a little while longer. You know, United are only going to get stronger. I know they're a long way off. City are only going to get stronger. And yes, Arsenal will get stronger, but they will have to compete with, teams, far more teams than what they're at now. And that just puts Tottenham at more of a disadvantage. Factor in that Newcastle are having a really good season, and no one expected them to be here in their first season. They're going to go out if they get Champions League. Newcastle are going to explode.
This is it. Like Newcastle, out of those teams you just mentioned there, probably bar Arsenal and City, who will look to be a lot stronger next season because of the backing they've got and the project that they're moving forward with.
If they get Champions League, mate, they explode. I mean, I don't know how financial fair play works and too in depth, and I don't know what they would be able to spend. But if they get Champions League football, they explode, mate, and they go to the next level.
100%, easily.
Like to have, they've already got the stadium. They'll build up infrastructure, the likes of the academy and that, but they've already got the stadium. They've already got the fan base. They're gonna have the money. Eddie Howe, if they get Champions League, is right up there with manager of the year. I think Mikel Arteta is probably pipping him at the moment, and rightfully so. Probably should get manager of the year, but Eddie Howe's right in that contention. And if they go on and get top four, honestly, that club goes to the absolute next level because there's nobody in world football that they can't afford. Nobody. But we know the money that those Saudis have. There is nobody in world football. Like, the absolute top of the richest list at the moment, you're probably Mbappe. I know he probably wouldn't go there, but they could go and activate whatever stupid release clause he has. And we've seen it. Like, who thought that Neymar would go to PSG? Nobody. But the money and the project and being the absolute man and going on that was enough to entice him. So, I don't think that they could quite trick a player the way that City did with Robinho. Could they pretend to be Juventus because they play in the same sort of colours? But
who knows?
They just have the money they have is scary.
It really is.
I don't think there's anybody in world football if they get Champions League and the project that they would be looking to do because if they get Champions League, they're well ahead of the project plan. If they get that Champions League money and they get that, they absolutely go up a level, and they'll need to retain a lot of players, and they'll need to obviously say to the likes of maybe like Sean Longstaff and other people that they've brought in, look, you're going to be a squad player, but we're in a Champions League, we're going to need to rotate, so you're not going to be maybe playing in all of the big games, but you'll still be a part, and they'll need to get that rotation right. But there literally isn't anybody. Go and look at the absolute top talents in the world, and if they're money driven, the world's your oyster.
100%. Newcastle, by all means, are the one club in Europe that can make that happen.
And you already look at some of the players that they've got on their books, like Kieran Trippier, obviously, massive success at Atletico Madrid, obviously won the Liga, a big name, probably bigger in England, but certainly a decent name around Europe. Bruno Gomes or whatever his name is, like a big talent, known worldwide, big in South America. So even if you start going out to that kind of pool, the South American kind of pool, the likes of maybe, this is a really unrealistic target, and I doubt he would leave because of the club he's at. But even if you start going out to that South American, Vinicius Junior, those kind of people are already going to see that kind of success and that kind of pool. So
exactly, yeah,
that they would be scary, mate. And I like Newcastle as a football club. I honestly hope they do get top four just for a little bit of a change up and bring back Champions League football to the Northeast. It's been away for a long time.
This is it. I think it's just I think it's just like a sense of what we've been familiar to in the past. When we started to really take a strong love and interest in football, where we saw Newcastle up in that bracket, where we're familiar with them being in and around those big clubs, and
Yeah,
it's been
like
such a long time since we've seen them up amongst them.
yeah, obviously, the Ginellas and the Shearers and
Yeah.
that generation that was that was obviously Laurent Robert and Nobby Solano and these fantastic
Oh
footballers
my.
and un, under the obviously the keen eye of Sir Bobby Robson. And maybe this is going too far, but it feels like that kind of energy again. It's been so long since the Northeast, in terms of football, has been a positive place. Obviously,
Yeah.
Sunderland and Middlesbrough have really struggled. Sunderland down in League One, and Borough struggling to get back to the Premiership, and Newcastle obviously sort of going up and down and being in a relegation strap. All the shit with Mike Ashley, he's gone. Sunderland are back in the Championship on the up. Borough in the playoffs, so football's buzzing in the Northeast again, which I think is fantastic for the overall landscape of the Premier League and the full football league structure. But if they if they get it, different. I'm sure there's players in that squad that are maybe hoping they don't, because they're not gonna fucking play again. Like Dan Burn. Sorry, mate. I don't care if you're from there.
Dan Burn.
You're gone. Like
Bless
Almiron.
him.
I don't care how hot you are. You're gone. They're bringing on that fucking like Jacob Murphy. You're gone. Like so many people, like Callum Wilson. Look, thanks for your efforts, mate. I wish you all the best, but you're out the door.
But we can recruit better than this.
Yeah, it goes to a frightening level, where they look out to all the European markets and well beyond that, and can just poach and inquire. Do you fancy coming and doubling your earnings and playing in the Champions League?
Nah,
Well,
that's it, mate. Yeah.
actually I do. Yeah, that sounds quite good.
What's this competition with Jacob Murphy? Yeah, go on.
That guy's in the bin, mate. How he's still
Mate,
playing.
this is a guy that when we first signed his twin brother Josh, and they'll turn around and saying, "Yeah, Josh is the better brother," and the fact that Jacob Murphy is supposed to be doing well for Newcastle at the moment, and then you see the likes of Josh Murphy turning out for the likes of Oxford and League One, sort of goes to show that there's room for improvement for Newcastle to move forward next season.
I mean, yeah, someone like you look across the team, and like I said, the likes of Longstaff and Dan Burn, and obviously they're from there, and the club means a lot to them. But big areas, and KT, if he was to go there, improves that left back spot instantly,
Yeah,
massively. Even the
exactly.
likes of St Maximan, he looks like such a frustrating player to watch.
I
And
can't work him out as a player. He, the amount of hype he gets, and the return he gives you Newcastle, like it's. I don't
you've got
understand it. I really
you've
don't understand it. I don't think he contributes as much as a lot of people make out.
like if they get Champions League, surely they start like they go to Juventus and say, right, let's talk about Vlahovic. Right, they go to fucking Bayern Munich and say, right, Leroy Sané, Kingsley Coman, let's have a chat. Right, Jude Bellingham, do you really want to go to Liverpool? We've got Champions League money here, mate. Do you want to earn three times what you're going to earn at Liverpool? Like those conversations are fucking
This is
petrifying.
it.
Like,
Like you're looking at Dan Burn, right, and then you go to Leipzig, like Josko Gvardiol, the most afterthought centre back in the world right now, who is like meant to be the next big thing as a centre back. When come to Newcastle, you start week in week out. You got Champions League football. You're part of a project, a young project moving forward, and you
yeah,
lead that line.
yeah.
It makes so much sense.
And they've obviously built slowly. They got Botman in and Bruno Gomes and whoever you say his name. Obviously Trippier. Like they've built slowly. Alexander Isaac and that, but petrifying, man. Who they could just go out and just yeah, you know, even as ridiculous as it sounds, how mad would it be if Harry Kane breaks Alan Shearer's record in the black and white of Newcastle?
Well,
Because they get
Alan Shearer, you just got caned. You
Like,
just got caned.
it's just it's scary, and it's like that emergence of City all those years ago, and when they obviously recruited fantastically well, with Vincent Kompany and Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva,
Nigel de
Sergio
Jong,
Aguero, oh, big
top
Dion,
boy.
like they got it right, but they had the money. They made plenty of mistakes along the way, but they just had the money to keep rolling, to just keep throwing it out and keep going and keep
Yeah,
going. And
it felt like with City, like for every five signings they made, there was one that was like just a misfire, and I feel that Newcastle can easily repeat that sequence.
no, but at the same time, they can go. It'd be a bit different if they finished fifth. It would still be obviously a really good season from where they've come from. Cup final, finish fifth. Yeah, I'm sure the fans would be buzzing. But if they get into that elite bracket, obviously the Champions League changes. They get more games in the Champions League next season. If they get into that absolute elite bracket, there's you know, barring probably trying to prize people away from the likes of Madrid and Barcelona. Obviously we see United struggle to get Frankie De Jong, but Barca want him out the door as well. I mean, does he want to come play his football in the Northeast? Probably not if he didn't want to play in Manchester. But there's so many names, and as a Newcastle fan, you must be buzzing because there literally isn't a name. Like you could say Mbappe, and it's 1,000,000 to 1 shot, but it's still a shot because literally you can just say, "What's your number? We can pay it."
So call me maybe.
It's scary, but
It's
yeah, we'll we'll,
scary, mate.
we'll
I
see
could.
how that pans
Yeah,
out.
exactly, mate. I can talk to you for hours, and I've just seen the time, and I think it's best that we get onto our final segment now. We're gonna go over
Just
to.
just a quick side note on Newcastle. Someone that they should bin, Anthony Gordon. Fuck that little rat.
Well, I've actually heard that he has been demoted to the under 21 side, and will be there for the rest of the season due to in-club disciplinary actions.
Put him on the train, fuck him back to Merseyside, and see if you can get a half refund.
You leave
Because
Claire Borden alone, alright?
what a little rat.
What an absolute cunt he really is. Like, to do that after,
Bang average footballer, mate.
and the fact that Everton turned down 80 million for him in the summer from Chelsea, just get that cunt right in the bin. Right, fantasy football. So, as always, going to go through the standings. And speaking of standings, sitting top still is Liam, 1767. Second is Mike, 1755. Third is me, 1732. Fourth is you, Mayhem, 1652. So there's exactly 80 points that separates us. Fifth is Akanbi, 1648. Sixth is Endro, 1643. Seventh is Joe, 1629. Eighth is Cam, 1581. And then below him is Sam on 1566. There is now a 15-point gap between Sam and Cam.
Swinging, I don't know.
Cam's going to have to get back on it. Sam's got one too many Arsenal players in this side, it seems. So, again, we're getting close to the end of the season. Things are going to start heating up. Who knows what to expect? Mayhem, pleasure as always. Thank you very much for joining me this evening.
No bother.
Unlike some people,
Mhm.
he's loyal. Ladies and gents, thank you very much for tuning in this evening. If you are new to the Football Boo podcast, definitely check out all our other episodes over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Audible. If you would like to catch all the live recordings, head on over to our YouTube channel at the Football Booth. Whilst you're over there, drop us a like, subscribe to the channel, and click that bell for notifications. And until next Monday, I bid you all good night and a star.